on a recorded line. This is Gabby. How can I help you?
Hey, Gabby, it's on I have on the phone. He's saying the neighbor came over, female neighbor. It was a domestic. She shot her husband.
Okay. All right, I'm going to get that on the screen, okay?
Okay.
It was a pleasant night of September in the peak COVID time when Manatee County's 911 department received an emergency call from a man reporting that he had heard gunshots across the street from his house.
One of the neighbors said he heard gunshots.
Okay, they just told you that, or did you hear gunshots as well?
One of the neighbors that was walking around here, he said he heard gunshots, so might have weapon involved.
While the police were immediately dispatched to the location, in the meantime, they were put on the call with a neighbor who was currently harboring the shooter.
She's with me now, quite upset. The weapon is here. We need the police before her mother and the little girl gets back from the park. I don't want them to find this. She was quite hysterical. I didn't know who was banging on my door. It said that he attacked her and she shot him. They've been having trouble.
Okay.
Ashley Benefield, a rising star in the ballerina world and an amateur swimsuit model who was supposed to be dancing swan, turned into a killer who mercilessly killed her own husband, dyeing her hands red with his blood. Did the former ballerina kill Doug Benefield in self-defense, or was it a cold-hearted murder hidden beneath sinister intentions? While the world was trying to figure out the truth, Ashley was convicted of a second-degree murder and put up for a trial that was due in 4 years. During that time, police investigated everything that had happened and found out that things might not be what they had thought. Beneath this seemingly normal case of self-defense lies a cavern of dark secrets that will shock the world. Before we discuss that, let's pray for the departed soul that it may rest in peace. The blossoming love between a killer and the victim started with an unusual meeting which can only be called a fateful accident. 24-year-old Ashley Benefield, who was still known as Ashley Byers at the time, was a young ballerina dancer and a party fundraiser for the presidential campaign of Donald Trump during the 2016 elections. 54-year-old Doug Benefield, a Navy veteran and a technology consultant who has just gone through a heartbreak after losing his previous wife Renee to a heart condition just 9 months ago. Doug happened to meet Ashley at one of the rallies, and they were both smitten with each other in just 14 days.
He was charming. Very funny, really smart, confident, but quiet. We were there for political reasons, but then also he was a man of faith, shared similar interests.
For Doug, it was a chance to find love once again, and for Ashley, this quickly made them both a perfect fit for each other. And for them, it was the perfect chance to settle together and start a bright new chapter in their life. Just 13 days after meeting each other at the party in Florida, Doug and Ashley decided to marry. What was supposed to be a happy moment for them was a shock to Doug's teenage daughter, whom he had with his previous spouse, Renee. Ava Benefield spoke about her father's impulsive decision to marry in an interview.
After my mom died, he really took kind of a motherly role along with a fatherly role. He made sure, I could go to him with boy problems, with school drama, with anything, and he would take care of it. I was upstairs, and he said, "Eva, we need to come down and talk to me and Ashley." And I said, "The only thing that you would need to tell me about y'all's relationship is if you proposed." And as soon as those words came out of my mouth, he said, "We're married."
The couple had big dreams, especially Ashley, so Doug put all of his effort into accomplishing them for her. Together, they built their own ballet company known as the American National Ballet. While Doug was trying his best to build a stable company that will revolutionize the ballerina dancers of America, Ashley was making sure that their family was happy in the process. What seemed like a peaceful family soon started to fall apart when Doug and Ava heard that news, which was the first crack in the wall. In July 2017, Doug received the news from Ashley that she was pregnant. Ashley always wanted to have children as she dreamt of having her own family, but the timing was not quite right since they had just married and they were in the middle of starting a new business. Ava was perhaps the one who was the most affected by it. In an interview, she told the public that,
"How did that sit with you?"
It didn't sit well at all, so this kind of felt like another stab in the back. There there was a lot of stress because now they basically have 2 teenage daughters and a little girl on the way.
Things became worse in August. Ashley told Doug that she will be going back to her mother's house because, in her words, her pregnancy was decided to be too difficult. This was tough for Doug, who was already on the verge of exhausting himself because the American National Ballet Company that they had set up was not working at all. All the ballet dancers that they had just hired were soon starting to leave because they weren't getting paid on time, and the company was going into one loss after another. But Doug, for the sake of his future children, decides to move in close to Ashley's mother, home in Bradenton, in hopes that he'll be there when his wife and future daughter need him. But without him knowing, Ashley gave birth in March, without him even knowing that his daughter was already in this world. Ashley purposely gave him a wrong due date, so that he wouldn't be able to see her at all. And so, Ashley files an injunction motion in the family court, denying her husband, Doug, any chance to meet and visit his newly born daughter at all. Doug, who will never allow that to happen, tries to fight against the court, but this is where Ashley brings up the domestic violence accusations, which takes the court another month to sort out. Fortunately for Doug, in September of 2018, the court finally denounced all the allegations and denied the motion from Ashley and set up a visitation schedule for Ashley and Doug. But Ashley kept on fighting back, and so the custody battle continued between them for months, even though they were still seeing each other and often spent long amounts of time together, at least according to their family court attorney during that time. But the previous cracks in their relationship were still there, so no matter what happened, they still bickered with each other at every small detail. This continued to happen till both of them eventually decided to move in together and settle things once back. But this was Doug's biggest mistake, as he didn't know that this would be the last day of his life on this very earth. It was the eve of September 27th, and Doug, as he had promised to Ashley, came with his U-Haul truck that he had parked right in front of her mother's house. He got up, he went inside to help Ashley pick up the stuff, so they loaded it into the truck. They had planned to move together into a property that he had rented nearby Ashley's mother's house. But while they were packing stuff, Ashley and Doug got into an argument over how they should load the U-Haul. Ashley tried to correct Doug by saying that her things should go in last, so that it would be easier for her to get her stuff out first. But this only served to make Doug upset, as he told her that it looked like she is already trying to split their stuff apart, and what is her stuff should be his, and what is his should be hers. Moreover, he felt like she was trying to kick him out of the house, so he became even more angry and told her that it is his right as her husband, so he can even stay the night here if he wants. These few words that he omitted in anger quickly turned into a heated argument, which eventually led to Doug hitting Ashley for the first time in their relationship. Fearing for her safety, she ran towards her bedroom as Doug followed her behind. Out of fear, the only thing that Ashley could do was to grab the .45 caliber handgun in her bedroom, which she pointed at Doug while threatening to leave her alone. She angrily scowled at him, but this only served to make Doug even more mad, as he started moving even closer towards her. According to Ashley Benefield's statement, Doug had taken a mixed martial arts stance, which involved him protecting his body with his arms, which he continued to move in a circular motion. Seeing that Doug wasn't willing to stop, Ashley had no choice but to pull the trigger, and she didn't stop until Doug was completely down. Without realizing what she had just done, Ashley grabbed her handgun and sprinted straight out of her room and toward the neighbor's house, where she fiercely started banging on the door. On September 27, 2020, dispatchers in Manatee County received a 911 call around 6 p.m. from a neighbor, John Sant, to report a shooting at the home.
It's right next door to me. She just came over. Her estranged husband attacked her, and she says she shot him.
Ashley was walked to his house holding a .45 caliber gun and said Doug had attacked her and she shot him. In the background, Ashley's sobbing cries could be heard, as she tells John that Doug is in her bedroom when asked by the caller where Doug's body is in the house. John also informed the police that the gun that was used in the event was also at his house, but away from Ashley's grasp. The 911 department told the neighbors to stay calm and to not check on the crime scene until the police are there. Time was ticking slowly, but soon the police arrived, as the sheriff outside the medical team entered Ashley's mother's house and found Doug lying on the ground in Ashley's bedroom. He had been shot 2 times, once in the leg and one in the arm, but the bullet had somehow managed to penetrate his chest, leaving him in critical condition. Soon, Doug was taken to a local hospital, but due to the severity of his injuries, he wasn't able to make it, and he passed on at the age of 58. After the examination of the crime scene and hearing Ashley's defense that she only shot Doug because he threatened to kill her, they came to a conclusion that her story didn't match with the crime scene, and her post-body examination where it was found that she had no injuries aside from an old scar. This led to an issue of an arrest warrant against Ashley Benefield, who decided that it was best to turn herself in and let the court prove her innocence. In November of 2020, Ashley Benefield turned herself in at Manatee County Jail and was officially charged with a second-degree murder. However, she did not plead guilty, and she had to await her trial, which was scheduled to be on July 23rd of 2024. The 4-year period was a difficult time for Doug's family, and especially his daughter, who silently awaited justice to be served. Eventually, the time finally arrived, and Ashley Benefield was put on trial by Florida's jury. The trial started with Suzanne O'Donnell as the prosecutor and held Ashley Benefield accountable for the cold-hearted murder that she committed of her deceased Doug Benefield, who was just there to be a great father to his daughter and a great husband toward Ashley.
This case is about a woman who very early on in her pregnancy decided she wanted to be a single mother, and she did not want the father of this child to have any visitation, her husband. And everything she did from that point on was to attain that goal. And she would stop at nothing to attain that goal. She tried several things in the system that you'll hear. The courts, law enforcement, Department of Children and Families, no one got on her side. And at the end, when there was no other option, she shoots him and kills him and claims self-defense.
Prosecution argued that Ashley Benefield planned to be a single mother and didn't want Doug Benefield anywhere near their daughter. That's why she tried so many times to use legal means to keep Doug away from their child, but when everything else failed, she shot her husband and killed him, while still claiming that it was all in self-defense.
Ashley Benefield was the only person that was armed. It was her gun. She had it from before. It's not like she took it away from Doug. It was her gun. And Doug Benefield was not armed. He had no gun, no knife, no club, no weapon of any kind.
Suzanne also highlighted that only Ashley Benefield was armed with a weapon, and that Doug had nothing in his hands, not even a knife. So there's no way he could have harmed her, much less killed her.
Now, he was shot multiple times, but one of the bullets was fatal. The trajectory of that bullet was side to side. It was not straight on. Doug Benefield was not facing her, coming at her at the time that the fatal shot was fired.
Moreover, Ashley pleaded guilty by saying that Doug had attacked her first, but the post-body examination showed that Ashley had no signs of injuries, which is in contradiction with the statement that she gave after she shot Doug. If her goal was to stop Doug from harming her, she could have just shot him on the leg so that he couldn't approach her. But instead, she purposely shot him close to the chest, knowing that it could have been fatal to the 58-year-old victim. Also, according to the Manatee County Sheriff's Office, based on the entry wounds on Douglas, it does not appear that he was facing Ashley when she began shooting, the detective wrote. It also does not appear that Douglas had any kind of defensive or combative stance. The medical examiner released an autopsy report that Doug Benefield was shot in the chest and not in the back, but Ellie ignored those findings.
There is no way he was facing her when she shot him. No way. Here's another angle. This is from the back. So if it went in on the side, the right-hand side, and that red dot is where it landed in the back.
In Suzanne's eyes, this was nothing but a manipulative and calculating move by Ashley to separate her child from their father. This is indicated from the fact that she was trying to reconcile with Doug while also planning to move somewhere else with her mother and daughter, which was oddly suspicious in its own right. Ashley's defense, Mr. Neil G. Taylor, defended her by telling the jury that Ashley was a victim of domestic violence, emotional abuse, and a violent household. He portrayed Ashley to be a kind young woman who had inspirations of achieving big dreams by becoming a part of Trump's administration in 2016 elections, but Doug Benefield took everything from her and played her into becoming his wife.
This is going to show that Douglas Benefield was a very disturbed man. Of that, I assure you, you'll have no doubt when the case is over. 30 years older than Ashley, he was obsessed with her, and he successfully portrayed himself as everything he was not in an effort to win her hand.
At first, he didn't show his true colors and pretended to be a great husband. He told her that he would never abuse her and promised to give her the whole world. But things became clear when his teenage daughter Ava Benefield started to live with them. The same loving husband soon became an abusive husband after his teenage daughter didn't sit well with a stepmother who was just 9 years older than her. Soon things started to fall apart, and Ashley became more and more afraid for her well-being.
To learn during this trial that over the course of this 4-year relationship, Douglas Benefield did the following. He fired a handgun into the ceiling of their kitchen on an occasion to stop Ashley from talking. He threw a loaded gun at Ashley. He punched Doug in the face so hard that he knocked the dog unconscious.
It became so bad that at one point during an argument, Doug pulled out a gun and pointed at his head as he told her that he will blow out his brains right in front of her. But this wasn't the end. When Doug couldn't pull the trigger on his head, he chose a different maneuver and instead shot the gun at the ceiling, showing Ashley what he's capable of. He further made Doug into the villain by stating that Doug punched Ashley's dog, which she admitted to on the chats by telling Ashley that it was all in anger, and he promises that he will do better. This all eventually led to the day of the unfortunate event where Ashley was backed away into a corner and had no choice but to shoot her husband in self-defense. The allegations against Doug were quite heavy, and it seemed that Ashley would slip away from the cold murder that she had committed, but fortunately the jury was sharp enough and saw straight through her lies and deception. Soon the witnesses were called. The first one to testify was Doug's cousin, Tommy Benefield. He told the judge that he knew that Doug and Ashley met at a political party, and just after 13 days, they decided to marry each other. He also told the jury that Doug had previously undergone vasectomy. He only undid it because of Ashley's wish to become a mother.
She talked about how they met at a political event, a meeting, where Doug and his business investors were. Ashley had reached out to him before that meeting. They showed me text messages between them for the 10 days between the first meeting and her second meeting with him up in Charleston, Mount Pleasant.
Indicate to you when they got married or how long they had been married?
Yes, ma'am, 13 days from first meeting.
That they got married 13 days after they met?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did Ashley ever discuss with you that she carried a gun?
Yes.
And what did she say about that?
She said that on their initial meeting, in the political meeting, that she and Doug's traveling partner in business went outside of Secret Service people, and she showed him the gun she was carrying at that event in her bra.
But did you have any conversations that night about them wanting to have a child? Or was that a different time?
I don't remember us talking about it that first night, no ma'am.
Okay. Do you remember a conversation with Doug and Ashley, specifically Ashley, about them wanting a child?
I believe it was later in the late spring, the next time that I visited with them.
Just like Tommy, the next witness was Doug's first daughter, Ava Benefield, who testified to the daughter about the marriage between her father and Ashley Benefield. She informed the jury that even though she didn't like her father's decision, she respected his wishes and continued to support him. However, after Ashley tried to play the role as her mother, she felt awkward as she was just 9 years older than her.
You said if Ashley was trying to get her point across that she would go on and on about that?
Yes.
Okay. So you don't term that as a disagreement?
No.
Okay. And what would you term that as?
My dad just listened to her, voiced her concerns.
Okay. Did you ever hear your dad at any time yell at her?
No.
Did you ever hear your dad do something or say something that was controlling to her?
No.
Did you ever see or hear your dad threaten her?
Objection, leading.
When faced with difficult questions like her father being an abuser or that he poisoned his previous wife, Ava became aggressive and denied all the claims. She told the jury that her father loved her mother and was with them until the very end. One by one, each witness testified in the court, and the jury wasn't able to come to a conclusion in a single day. So the trial was postponed until the next day, where more witnesses were called and more investigations were brought in front of the world. One of the major testimonies was by Alicia Byers, the mother of Ashley Benefield. She told the court about her daughter's living conditions and how she suffered an extremely difficult pregnancy and came back home to live with her. She also talked about the firearm and how Ashley had always carried it with her even before she met Doug Benefield.
Ashley moved in with you when she was pregnant?
Yes.
Okay. And she was married at the time, but it was just Ashley that moved in?
Yeah, he brought her down.
Okay.
And yes, and yeah.
And she moved in with you?
Yeah. He told me I needed to take care of her. He dropped her off.
Okay. So she stayed with you from that time on, correct?
Yes.
Does Ashley have a concealed weapons permit?
Yes.
Does she own firearms?
She doesn't now, no.
Did she own firearms then?
Yes.
Okay. How many?
2, I think. Yeah, 2.
Did she ever go to the firing range or
Yes.
anything? I'm sorry?
Yes.
Okay. How frequently would she go?
Well, we did all the courses.
The other important witness was Dr. Barbara Russell, who was a licensed clinical psychologist with whom Ashley Benefield stayed together with after the events of the shooting. She talked about Ashley's mental health and how she suffered terribly from the constant emotional abuse during her relationship with Doug Benefield.
Did Ashley Benefield look like that when you saw her prior to the day of the homicide?
Prior to the day, no.
Okay. What was different about her?
When I saw her after the incident, there was edema, swelling on the side of her face.
Okay, and did that include her right eye?
It included her left eye.
Left eye, rather?
Yes.
Okay. And when you saw her before the homicide, did she have swelling on the left side of her face, on her cheek and her eyelid?
She never had, no.
When you saw her immediately following the incident that morning at about 1 a.m., was there any indication that by Ashley that her head was hurting?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained. Spontaneous statement, Your Honor.
From Doug's side, his previous defense attorney during the family court drama for the issues between the couple and the custody of the child was Stephanie Murphy.
I saw that Ms. Benefield had filed a petition for protection against domestic violence on, I think it was April 23rd. So about 2 weeks prior to me finding out, she had filed the petition. And in that filing, there was, she identified the birth date of the child, as well as I think the child's name, which is the first time we learned about that.
She testified the whole drama that had occurred between Doug and Ashley, and how the child custody case went with Ashley falsely accusing Doug only to be later disproven and forced to have Doug meet their daughter on a specific visitation schedule. All these testimonies only made things more complicated. From what had been portrayed until now, it was clear that Doug Benefield had some sort of anger issues, but Ashley Benefield had also lied in the past to paint Doug as the villain, but failed. The trial went on for 4 more days until around July 30th of 2024.
I look at the bases for the downward departure and I consider all of the facts and evidence that have been presented to me. So with that said, the sentence of the court will be as follows. I'm going to sentence you to 20 years in Florida State Prison. That's to be followed by 10 years of probation. Upon your release in the Florida State Prison.
The jury had finally announced that Ashley Benefield was guilty of killing her husband and was charged with a lesser crime of manslaughter with a firearm. On December 3rd, due to her lawyer pleading a lower sentence on her behalf, Ashley's original sentence of 30 years was reduced to 20 years in prison, followed by 10 years of probation. The sentence was a bit unacceptable to Doug's family, especially his daughter, who told the press that she wishes that Ashley would just rot in jail until the end of her life. But she eventually accepted the ruling, and was at peace with her father finally getting the justice that he deserved. This case caused a huge wave across the country, with many news journalists calling it the Black Swan murder case, in reference to the 2010 movie Black Swan. It was the perfect name for his case since in the movie, the artist was mentally tortured and became broken, which is quite similar to how Ashley Benefield was a former ballerina, and yet she became a cold-hearted killer, now serving 20 years in prison. Unfortunately, this whole event left many lives ruined. 2 daughters lost their father, a mother saw her daughter turning into a murderer, a husband leaving this world at the hands of his beloved wife, and the beloved wife who ruined everything with her own hands that she had built everything with.